She sat in silence, paralyzed, scared, and alone at the airport. People passed by, pretending not to see. But one man stopped, looked around, and asked a question that would change everything. The holiday crowd surged through the terminal like a restless tide, voices echoing, suitcase wheels clacking on the glossy floor. Children whining, parents hurrying, and flight announcements chiming overhead. Amid the chaos, no one noticed the little girl sitting quietly in a wheelchair near gate 14. She was small, no older than 8 or 9, her legs covered with a soft pink blanket, a worn teddy bear resting in her lap. Her brown curls framed a pale face, and her eyes large, searching moved nervously from one face to another, hoping for recognition. Her tiny suitcase stood beside her, untouched for what looked like hours, and yet no adult stood near, no guardian, no airline staff, just her alone. People passed by, some casting glances, some whispering to their companions. Where's her parent? Is she okay? But nobody stopped. Everyone had somewhere to be, someone waiting for them. The little girl remained a silent fixture in a world too busy to care. Occasionally she adjusted her grip on the bear, holding it tighter. When a loud voice startled her, or when another child stared too long, she didn't cry, not out loud. But her eyes shimmered, with the kind of hurt that made even the air around her feel heavy. Then, a man pushing a stroller passed by, a little boy bouncing beside him, chattering about airplanes. A man, maybe in his 30s, with kind eyes and a weathered look, stopped. Something in him couldn't keep walking. His son tugged at his arm, pointing toward the window where planes took off. But the father had already turned his attention to the girl. He knelt beside her, lowering himself to her eye level, his voice gentle. "Hey, sweetheart, are you waiting for someone?" She didn't answer, just blinked at him. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Her lips trembled. The man's expression softened even more. He looked around, scanning the crowd, expecting to see a parent running over, explaining everything. But no one came, no familiar face, no sign of concern. He looked back at her and tried again. "Do you know where your mommy or daddy is?" Still no answer. Her fingers clutched the bear tighter. The man nodded slowly, sensing her fear, her confusion. "Okay, it's all right. I'm not going to leave you here, I promise." He stood up and waved down a nearby flight attendant hurrying past, calling out, "Excuse me? Hi, can you help us here?" The attendant slowed, frowned, glanced at the girl, then gave a quick, vague response. "I'm sorry, sir. I have to." "Board a flight. Someone else will assist you shortly." She walked away without looking back. The dad stared after her in disbelief. The girl shifted uncomfortably in her chair. A few more people walked by, giving side glances but saying nothing. He crouched again and smiled softly. "Okay, kiddo, we'll figure this out. I'm going to try to call someone for you, all right?" Noticed a luggage tag hanging from the side of her suitcase. Attached to it was a laminated card with a phone number and a name scribbled in block letters. No airline branding, no unaccompanied minor bracelet, just a first name. He pulled out his phone, dialed the number, and waited. It rang and rang. Then a robotic voice. "The voicemail box is full. Please try again later." He looked down at the girl. "Sweetheart, do you know who's supposed to meet you?" She finally whispered, barely audible. "My daddy said someone would come." The dad swallowed hard. "How long have you been waiting?" She shrugged weakly. "Since the sun was high." "Ow." "No." His little boy pulled at his arm again. "Dad, aren't we going to go now?" The father looked at his son, then at the girl. He checked the time boarding had already started for their flight, but something in his chest refused to let him walk away. Something about this didn't sit right. He sat on the floor beside her. "Looks like we'll be staying a while." He offered her a bottle of water from his bag. She hesitated, then took it with a quiet thank you. It was the first full sentence he'd heard from her. His son sat on the other side of her, curious but friendly. "What's your bear's name?" he asked. "Cupcake," she said softly. "That's a cool name," the boy smiled. The man looked around again. Still no sign of staff. No announcements. He stood up and walked to the nearest desk, asking for help. "There's a little girl sitting by herself in a wheelchair near gate 14. I think she's been left there for hours. She says someone was supposed to meet her, but no one's come. The airline staff member clicked her computer keys without much urgency. Is she traveling as an unaccompanied minor? I don't think so. There's no tag on her. No airline. Escort. Just her in a suitcase, and she's paralyzed. She hasn't been able to move from that spot. If there's no tag, then she wasn't registered through us. She might be with a third-party service, or a private arrangement. We'll put in a report. Put in a report? That's it? The woman shrugged. It happens sometimes. Parents miss their pickups. The dad clenched his jaw, his patience. Wearing thin, she's a child. She can't even walk. You're telling me nobody's going to do anything? She's not under our care, sir? Sorry, he walked back, furious. Sat beside her again, but she hadn't moved. His son was showing her how to fold a paper airplane with a napkin. The dad checked the tag again. The last name struck him. It was familiar, like something he'd read in the news or seen on a billboard. Real estate, maybe? Couldn't place. But it wasn't just any name. It was the kind of name that came with money, status, power. He looked around again. Something felt wrong. Not just neglect, this felt like abandonment. He tried the number again. Still nothing. Tried. Searching the name online, the first result made his eyebrows lift. The girl's last name belonged to a CEO worth millions. A man known for controversial business tactics, luxury properties, and constant travel. The girl's first name was mentioned in an old profile, his only child. Her mother had passed away years ago. The dad exhaled sharply. He looked at the girl, now smiling faintly as she tried to throw the paper airplane with her small trembling hands. It fluttered and fell at her feet. She looked at him suddenly and said, "Do you think someone forgot me?" He froze. That question shouldn't exist in the heart of a child. "No," he said softly. "You're not forgotten. Not anymore." But inside, his heart dropped, because her eyes held a truth she'd already accepted. In the full voicemail, the empty gate, the lack of staff response, all of it told him the same thing. She may have been abandoned. The minutes turned to hours, and the terminal gradually thinned as flights came and went. Still, no one came for the girl. The man sat beside her, never leaving her side, while his young son sat on the floor, folding more paper airplanes from napkins. He handed the girl another bottle of water and a granola bar from his backpack, and she accepted it without a word at first, then whispered a faint thank you. She hadn't asked for anything, hadn't complained. But every so often, she'd glance toward the hallway leading to baggage claim, hope flickering in her eyes before fading again. It was the same every time. Her stuffed bear remained in her lap like an anchor. The man leaned in and spoke gently. "You hungry? I've got some snacks." She nodded a little. As he handed her a packet of trail mix, his son chimed in, cheerful and innocent. "My dad always brings snacks in case we get stuck. One time we missed a plane and ate jelly beans all day." The girl smiled faintly, and something loosened in her shoulders, just slightly. She turned her head toward the man, voice small. "He said someone would come. He said it wouldn't be long." The man didn't ask who he was yet. He just listened. "Do you know how long you've been here?" he asked gently. She looked confused. "Since before lunch. I had breakfast at the last airport. Then he left. Said someone else would meet me." "Who left?" "No." The man pressed, careful not to scare her. "My daddy. He's important. And always busy." "Oh." The man sat back. His jaw tensed as if sick. Feeling crawled up his spine, looked again at the laminated tag hanging from her suitcase. Still the same number. Still no response. He scrolled down his call log. 3 attempts, all unanswered. Voicemail still full. He stood and walked back to the front desk of the gate. The same airline staffer was still there, sipping a coffee now, casually tapping on her keyboard. Again, he said, keeping his tone even. "That little girl is still sitting there alone. I've been here almost 3 hours with her. Nobody's come, and no one seems to know where she's supposed to go. She's not tagged as an unaccompanied minor. Can someone please find out who dropped her off or where she's supposed to be?" The staffer glanced up, exasperated. Sir, I've already told you we don't have her in our system as a UM. If she was dropped off privately, it's not our responsibility. Are you even listening to yourself? He snapped, keeping his voice low but firm. She's 8. In a wheelchair? Alone? You're telling me you're okay leaving her like that? The staffer stiffened. What? I'm not authorized to assist unless the paperwork was filed through us. He took a deep breath. Then get someone who is authorized. Eventually, after pushing enough, she radioed airport security. 2 officers arrived about 10 minutes later. One was older, mustached, and clearly seasoned. The other looked fresh out of training. The man explained the situation again. The officers listened, then looked at the girl, still quietly sitting, her barren hand, eyes now drifting shut with exhaustion. The older officer shrugged. Maybe the parent's just late. These things happen. Kids get bounced around all the time. She's not in distress. Not in distress? The man echoed, incredulous. You don't find anything wrong with her sitting here alone for hours, unable to move from that chair, with no contact? No adult in sight? She seems calm, the officer replied blandly. If she's not claiming abuse or requesting help, there's not much we can do. She's not technically in danger at the moment. You've got to be kidding me, the man muttered. So I guess we're all just going to wait until something worse happens before anyone cares? The younger officer looked uncomfortable, glancing toward his partner. The man continued, She told me her dad left her and said someone would come. Nobody's come. Nobody's even looking. What if no one ever comes? The older officer shifted. I'll make a note and file an incident report. You do that? The man replied bitterly. In the meantime, I'm staying with her, and I'm calling CPS. He stepped away, pulled out his phone again, and dialed. It was transferred. Twice before someone from Child Protective Services finally answered, he explained everything: the child's age, her condition, how long she'd been alone, and the complete lack of airline documentation. The woman on the phone sighed sympathetically, but explained the complications. We can initiate a welfare check, but unless the child is in physical danger or actively requesting removal from her guardian, we can't intervene immediately. It'll go into process. Can you remain with her for a little longer? I already missed my flight for her, the man replied. I'm not going anywhere. He hung up and returned to the girl. She was watching the planes take off. You fly a lot? He asked. She nodded. I've been on more planes than cars. Daddy sends me to different houses. Sometimes I stay with Miss Nancy. Sometimes it's other ladies.
Oh.
They take care of me until it's time to move again. Do you like staying with them? He asked. I don't really know them. They're just nice for a little while. But I miss my mommy. She used to be there at the end of the flights. He paused. What happened to her? She died in the hospital. I was 6. He didn't know what to say. His own son had now grown quiet, sitting on the other side of her, clearly understanding more than a child his age should. A while later, as he refilled a water bottle at a nearby fountain, a man in a yellow vest tapped his shoulder. A security guard, not one of the ones from earlier. He looked both ways and lowered his voice. You're the guy sitting with the girl at gate 14, right? Yeah, why? The guard looked hesitant. Look, off the record, this ain't the first time. I've seen her like this. What do you mean? I've worked here 10 years. That little girl, same wheelchair, same arrive, seen her 2 or 3 times in the last year. Always different airports, always alone. She waits a long time, sometimes gets picked up by people in suits. Never the same person twice. Real weird, quiet kid. It doesn't cause trouble, so no one looks too closely. The man stared at him. Do you know who she is? The guard nodded slightly. I didn't until I heard the name on the tag. She's the daughter of that big real estate CEO. You know the one? Fancy billboards. Commercials with yachts and helicopters. Guy's always traveling. Word is, he moves her around so she's not in his way. Nannies, assistants, tutors, different houses in different cities. The man's stomach turned. You're telling me this is normal for her? The guard shook his head. Normal, no. But it's happened before. Nobody ever raises hell because of who her dad is. The man clenched his fists. Raising hell now. Just as he turned to go back to her, his phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered. A crisp, professional voice spoke. "Is this the man who's been accompanying my client's daughter? Who is this?" "Represent her father. I'm calling to inform you that you are not authorized to speak on behalf of the family or make any decisions regarding the child. We appreciate your concern, but this is a private matter. We request you step away and let our designated guardian collect her." The man's voice hardened. "She's been here for hours, alone, with no one. I've already contacted CPS." There was a pause. "Then we'll be contacting the airport's legal department. We ask that you cease further involvement before this becomes a liability." The call ended before he could reply. He looked down at his phone. No name, just the cold echo of power trying to silence concern. He walked back to the girl. She looked up, hopeful. He smiled, hiding his anger. "We're not done yet," he said softly. "Not by a long shot." The sun had long set, casting golden shadows across the terminal windows, yet still no one had come for the girl. Security had stepped back, uninterested in escalating things. CPS remained caught in bureaucratic red tape, promising to send someone. Within the next few hours, which felt like a slow-motion denial, the man stayed with the girl, refusing to leave her side. His son had fallen asleep, curled up in a chair, jacket draped over him. The girl looked exhausted but alert, as if years of instability had conditioned her to always stay awake, just in case someone forgot her again. When a group of well-dressed people arrived, 3 in total, each wearing suits, their expressions stiff and curated, the tension thickened. They walked straight toward him. One woman holding a clipboard, the other 2 whispering to each other. The woman with the clipboard introduced herself coolly. "We represent the interests of the child's father. You can step away now." The man didn't move. "And who are you?" he asked, keeping his voice low but firm. "Where have you been all day?" The woman didn't answer the second question. "We were notified only recently of a change in her itinerary. There was a delay in her pickup due to miscommunication between teams. She's been alone here for almost 7 hours." The man replied. "No one came. No adult. No airline staff. She wasn't even registered as an unaccompanied minor. Is that how your teams work?" The woman kept her expression neutral. She was being transferred between trusted caretakers. "This isn't the first time. She's accustomed to it." The man blinked. "You say that like it makes it better." The woman ignored his tone. "We'll be handling her transport from here. There's no need for further involvement." Didn't respond right away. Instead, his fingers discreetly tapped his phone, sliding into the voice recorder app. He let it run, keeping the phone in his pocket. He listened as they spoke around the girl like she was luggage. "She'll be with Miss Jordan for the next 6 weeks, then back to the Hamptons residence. We'll schedule a therapist if needed, but children adapt. This can't get out. He's days away from closing that Dubai project." The man clenched his jaw. There was no warmth in their voices, no concern. It was all logistics, damage control, and public image. He looked down at the girl. She was staring at the floor now, her shoulders hunched, silent again, retreating inward. He knelt beside her and whispered, "Are you okay with going with them?" Her eyes filled with tears as she shook her head no, so subtly it was almost invisible. "Do you know them?" She shook her head again. The woman noticed and stepped forward. "She's under her father's guardianship. You have no legal grounds to keep her." "Maybe not yet," he said. "But I have eyes and a conscience." With no one from CPS on site and the airlines, staff too scared to interfere with such high-profile people, he made a decision. He stood up, lifted his sleeping son carefully into one arm, and placed a hand gently on the girl's shoulder. "She's coming with me tonight. I've already filed a report. Till CPS follows up, I'm not letting her leave with strangers who didn't even show up to meet her." The woman stepped back, face twitching. "You'll regret this. You've made yourself part of a legal matter." "Good," he said, walking away with the wheelchair rolling beside him at a nearby hotel across from the airport. He checked into a modest room with 2 beds and a pull-out couch. He helped the girl into one of the beds, propped her up with pillows, and gave her a warm cup of hot cocoa from the lobby. She looked around the room as if it were a palace. "This is nice," she whispered. "The lights aren't too bright. Some houses keep all the lights on all night." He sat on the bed across from her, his son now fast asleep beside him. "Do you mind if I ask you something?" She nodded. "How often are you left like that? Alone in airports, I mean?" She shrugged. "A lot. Daddy always has places to go. He says he sends me to nice houses, but they're all different. They don't feel like homes." "How long's it been like this?" he asked. "Since Mommy went away. She died when I was little. Daddy said I'd travel more. Said I'd have an adventure life." "Do you like that kind of life?" She didn't hesitate. "I just want to stay in one place." With people who talk to me like I'm real, the words landed hard. He didn't know what to say. But her in gently, her stuffed bear still in her arms, and promised, "You're safe tonight." After she fell asleep, he opened his phone and stared at the blank new post screen. He didn't want to exploit her story, but he also couldn't stay silent. So he wrote, "Tonight I sat with a little girl at an airport who had been left. Alone for 7 hours. No escort, no guardian, just a stuffed bear and a silent wheelchair. She said her dad is important and always busy. The world should never be too busy to protect its children." He didn't mention names, didn't tag anyone, just pressed post. He closed his phone and fell asleep on the pullout. Couch, one arm around his son, the other around the guilt of a world that let this happen to Isley. By morning, his phone was buzzing nonstop. Hundreds of messages, thousands of likes, shares, and comments. The post had gone viral. Someone had screenshotted the name tag in the background of a photo he had uploaded of the stuffed bear. Figured it out. The girl's last name, the CEO. The headlines exploded across the internet. Stranger comforts, CEO's paralyzed daughter left alone at airport. Real estate mogul under fire after daughter found abandoned. News vans were already pulling up outside the hotel lobby by 9 a.m. Reporters were asking questions. Social media trended with hashtags like hashtag left at gate 14 and hashtag CEO shame. People flooded the airline's social media pages demanding answers. Why was a child not registered as an unaccompanied minor? Why did no one intervene? That morning, the CEO's office released a statement. It was sterile and perfectly rehearsed. "This is a regrettable misunderstanding. My daughter was scheduled to be transferred between verified caretakers. We regret any emotional stress caused, and we are working closely with authorities to resolve this privately." But the public wasn't buying it. They had seen the video. A bystander at the airport had quietly filmed the man kneeling by the girl, giving her a juice box and talking to her gently while staff walked by uninterested. The video had now reached national news. News anchors called it heartbreaking. Commentators praised the father who stayed. Journalists dug deeper, uncovering lawsuits from former nannies and assistants who described the CEO's daughter as being shipped around like freight. In the middle of it all, the man stayed silent. He didn't speak to reporters. He declined interview requests. He kept the curtains closed and focused on the children. CPS called back and promised a visit that afternoon. Till then, they said, stay put. They would make arrangements. Then came the knock on the door. He opened it to see the CEO himself, dressed sharply, hairstyled, eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses. 2 lawyers stood behind him, one holding a briefcase, the other holding a manila folder. The CEO removed his glasses slowly, jaw tight. "Where's my daughter?" he demanded, his voice low and full of fury. "She's resting," the man replied, stepping into the doorway. "She was exhausted from waiting for you. You had no right," the CEO started. But his daughter's voice cut through the air from behind him. "Please don't let him take me." They all turned. She had wheeled herself into the doorway, still in pajamas, her bear in her lap. Eyes locked on the only person who had made her feel seen in years. The CEO blinked. "Sweetheart, I'm not going," she said again, firmer this time. "With you." The hallway fell into stunned silence. The courthouse stood like a monument of truth, yet its walls held the tension of power, privilege, and pain. Outside, cameras clicked, and microphones jutted forward as reporters swarmed the steps, eager for a glimpse of the high-profile custody hearing that had captured the nation. The CEO stepped from a black SUV with his legal team in tow, his face hardened, jaw set, and dressed in a suit that screamed money louder than his words ever could. He ignored the shouts from the media, the pointed questions about neglect, the accusations of abandonment, and made his way inside. Across the lobby, the single dad stood quietly, one hand on his son's shoulder, the other gently resting on the back of the young girl's wheelchair. She looked small but calm, wearing a simple dress, her hair neatly brushed, her stuffed bear tucked in beside her. Inside the courtroom, the tension thickened. CPS had expedited the custody hearing under overwhelming public pressure, citing emotional risk and the urgent need to determine the child's safety. The judge, a woman known for her no-nonsense demeanor, opened the hearing with a sharp tone, making it clear she would not tolerate theatrics. The CEO's lawyers began with a polished statement about the father's deep commitment to his daughter's well-being, how a rare delay in caregiver scheduling had been misconstrued, and how internet sensationalism had created an unnecessary spectacle. The CEO nodded along stiffly, barely glancing at his daughter. Then came the questions. Mr. Underscore, can you confirm the name of your daughter's school? There was a pause. She's homeschooled by whom? She's rotated between. Tutors? We have several on retainer. Can you name the current tutor? The CEO faltered. I'd have to check with my assistant. What is your daughter's blood type? He blinked. I believe it's a positive. A CPS representative interjected. It's O negative. Yes. The judge's eyes narrowed. Her allergies? The CEO cleared his throat. She had a peanut allergy when she was little. It's gone now. No, sir, the CPS rep corrected. She still has it. It was documented in a medical report filed 2 months ago, after a reaction in Miami. Courtroom murmured softly. The judge held up a hand. Continue. They pressed on. Her birthday? He hesitated. Offered a month. It was the wrong one. Favorite food? He guessed pasta. She didn't like pasta. Her therapist's name? He didn't know she had one. The longer the questions continued, the clearer. It became he didn't know her. Not really. Not the way a parent should. Not the way the man sitting quietly across the aisle knew her after only days. The judge leaned back, tapping her pen. Then she turned to the single dad. You've become involved in this child's welfare without legal obligation. Why? He stood slowly, his voice steady, 'cause she was alone. Scared, and no one came. She wasn't a priority to anyone around her. She never asked me for anything. She didn't cry. She just waited. I stayed because it was the right thing to do. I didn't come looking to become anything to her. I just couldn't walk away. And what are you asking for today? He looked at the girl. Nothing for myself. I just want her to be safe. In a home, with people who see her, people who don't treat her like cargo between caretakers. The judge nodded. Thank you. The girl was asked if she wanted to speak. She hesitated, then nodded. They helped her to the front of the courtroom, where a microphone was adjusted to her height. She looked around nervously, then said softly, I used to wait at airports a lot. Sometimes people came. Sometimes they didn't. I stayed quiet so I wouldn't be a problem. My dad says kids who complain get in the way. The judge. But when I was waiting this time, someone sat next to me. He gave me juice. He didn't ask me to be quiet. He asked if I was okay. He stayed, even when everyone else walked by. She turned slightly toward the single dad. He saw me. My dad never does. Silence settled over the courtroom like a blanket. Even the CEO looked momentarily uncomfortable, his hands gripping the table a little too tightly. The judge glanced between the girl, the dad, the CPS file in front of her. Then she spoke. In light of the CPS report, the testimony provided, and the observable emotional disconnect between the child and her. Father, I am ordering temporary guardianship to be placed under the Department of Child Protective Services. The father will undergo a full investigation into parental fitness, psychological impact, and legal responsibilities. I am also authorizing the foster application of the man currently providing emergency care. Pending background clearance, he may be considered as a temporary placement should he wish. The CEO's lawyers whispered in a frenzy, but it was too late. The gavel struck the desk. The judge stood and left the room. Outside, the press exploded. Headlines lit up within minutes. Judge strips CEO of custody, pending investigation. Hero dad may foster abandoned daughter. She saw me. Viral courtroom testimony melts hearts. The man carried his son in one arm and held the wheelchair with the other, shielding the girl from cameras as they left the courthouse. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't speak to the reporters. He just focused on getting them safely into the car in the following weeks. The investigation into the CEO's parenting revealed far more than expected. Testimonies from former employees surfaced, nannies fired for pushing back, tutors silenced. With NDAs, distant relatives who hadn't seen the girl in years, the story that unfolded wasn't one of wealth and power, but of neglect wrapped in a designer package. Public opinion turned. Clients pulled out of contracts, protests erupted. Outside his offices, his public image, once polished to perfection, began to crumble under the weight of what he failed to protect, his daughter. Meanwhile, something quiet but beautiful unfolded in the suburbs. A new video surfaced, not from a news channel, but from a neighbor. Little girl in a wheelchair sat in a park, sunlight catching in her curls. She was laughing, truly laughing. The stuffed bear was still with her, now dressed in a tiny handmade scarf. A little boy raced around her with paper airplanes. And beside her sat the man who had once just been passing through an airport, now watching over her like he'd done. It is whole life. No press, no microphones, just family. The video went viral for different reasons. Not outrage this time, but hope. Proof that a child didn't need mansions or jet-setting nannies. She just needed someone to stay, someone to ask if she was okay, and mean it, someone to see her. And while the legal battle dragged on in the background, one thing became clear to the world. All the power. Prestige and money in the world meant nothing if you failed to show up for your own child. And in a quiet moment, away from cameras, reporters, and courtrooms, the girl looked up at the man and asked, "Do you think I can stay here? Like, forever?" He smiled, eyes warm. "I don't know what forever looks like, but for as long as you need, I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, leaned her head on his shoulder, and whispered, "Then that's home." He hadn't come looking for a daughter that day. It was just a father, catching a flight with his son, trying to get home, but fate had other plans. Because sometimes, the right people find each other when the world least expects it. He didn't come looking for a daughter that day, but fate chose him anyway.